Hello ladies and gentlemen, you're watching AP Psychology on AP for Teens. This is, as you can tell, a new series, new adventures in new educational fields. It's going to be on psychology, obviously, which is one of the most popular actually, AP exams to be taken, so I'm going to be appealing hopefully to a lot of people here. Psychology, this topic is going to be explained by the guys who make ideas for a living, the philosophers. So let's get started. Now normally in these videos I would be having something along the lines of what we learned last time, but seeing as this is the first episode, we're just going to jump straight into what we're going to be learning today. Today we're going to be discussing what psychology is, who made us learn psychology, what happened after the invention of psychology. And as you can see right here on the bottom right, you see parts of the human brain, which is one of the many interesting and complex topics we're going to be discussing here in psychology. If you don't understand the words, don't worry. By the end of this whole subject series thing, you will understand this perfectly, guaranteeing yourself a great score on the AP exam. Let's get started. As always, we're going to open the curtain now. Now, what is this psychology thing that we're talking about here? Well, psychology is the scientific study of behavior and mental processes, which doesn't make much sense until you actually understand what each part of that means. You know what the scientific study, I assume, is, but what exactly is behavior? Behavior is observable actions of a person or animal. Yes, animal. In psychology, we'll be talking about both humans and animals a lot. So don't expect this to be purely about the two-legged, two-armed geniuses that we are. We're also going to be discussing a lot of different other animals, different species, and how they relate to psychology as well. The mind. When you say mental processes, what do you mean by the mind sort of thing? Well, the mind is sensations, memories, motives, emotions, thoughts, and other phenomena particular to individuals or animals that aren't observed. Which you'll understand the difference between this and the brain, which I'll be discussing very shortly. Psychology, before you get anywhere into this, psychology is a science, and it's a clear science. Despite my school being a social studies credit, probably in a lot of schools being a social studies credit, psychology, when you get down to the core of it, it's a science. It's not lab filled like chemistry, it's not equation filled like physics, it's not cutting things and examining the different body parts like biology that much, but it's still a science, and one science that many people need to understand in order to get a good hold in their career. Now, who invented this whole mind-reading madness thing? Well, as with about 1.5 million different things that are inventions that we use today, the ancient insert name of civilization created it. In our case, it's the ancient Greeks, the first people to think about thinking. Think about thinking. Sorry, Socrates, who was a philosopher that you may have heard of even not knowing anything about psychology, thought about philosophical issues of beauty, justice, and the right of man, not woman, man, because apparently women don't have rights. Plato, Socrates' student, argued that humans had knowledge before observing anything, that we were born with an understanding of certain things. Now maybe not like the baby over there understanding one of the most complex formulas in possibly history, but understanding things like who we are, what is out there, so smaller, easier questions. Hey, that's my mother. Hey, that's my father. That's the things we're born with an understanding of that. That's what Plato believed. Now, his student, Aristotle, believed that we derive truth from the physical world using logic and reasoning. The same type of logic that says a 10-year-old boy can be 10 for 13 years. Yep. Now, Aristotle's student, Alexander the Great, had absolutely nothing to do with psychology. He ended up taking over a large part of the world, which I would advise seeing a world history series if you want to learn more about that. This is psychology. Okay. So apparently you do need logic to take over a large portion of the known world. My mistake, toy soldiers. I'm sorry. What is dualism? Dualism is a theory that the ancient Greeks came up with that's extremely important. It divides the world into two parts between body and spirit. It splits the brain and the mind. Now we've already discussed what the mind is, but what's the brain? The brain is the command center of the central nervous system. And if you don't know what the central nervous system is, you may have heard of nervous system, but the central nervous system, we'll explain that when we get to that in a later episode. The idea of dualism appears a lot in psychology. You have to understand what dualism is. That's what a large portion of theories are based on. Dualism, the idea that the world is split between body and spirit, brain and mind, the physical and the mental. Then what? Then what? What could have happened? After the ancient Greeks made a bunch of cool ideas with the long line of philosophers that teach each other, and then Alexander the Great taking over the world, what happens after that? Guess what? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because at the time, religion, which was mainly, since we're doing this in Europe, it was Christianity, it was Catholicism. They said at the time that spirit couldn't be studied. How could you study a spirit? That's like studying, ghosts. How do you study ghosts? Scientific studies were made to see things about God. The trees are green. Why are the trees green? Because God put chlorophyll in them. That's how scientific studies were at the time. Although I don't think they knew about chlorophyll in, the early 80s. The scientific revolution changed all this with new guys making ideas just as cool as the ancient Greeks, which we will be discussing next time. Now, that person lawn mowing over there is not an ancient Greek. The ancient Greeks over here, you might star in the next episode. We'll have to see next time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this episode of AP for Teens. You were watching AP Psychology. Please do one of the following. On the left, there's a subscribe button. In the middle, leave a comment. And on the right, like this episode. I hope to see you next time on another episode of AP Psychology. You've been watching AP for Teens. Thank you.